Today I'll be trying MIG welding for the first time. In the beginning the learning curve is quite steep, but at the end I was able to weld a nice dual purpose table. It fits through doors, I can use it for presentations and as a welding table. I'm also sharing a few tips and tricks that I figured out over time, so stay tuned, lean back and enjoy. Recently Bsaw reached out to me if I want to try their MIG welder. Usually I'm hesitant to do product reviews unless they are really interesting to me. In that case I had a project sitting there just waiting to be made. This welder is really affordable and I was really surprised how small it is compared to my old TIG welder. Bsaw also sent me their automatic welding helmet, so I'll be trying that as well. The welder comes with some accessories and there is also a super cheap welding mask if you want to try using that first. There are some replacement tips. The necessary MIG welding cables, which I find a little bit short, but they are alright for around $100 that this welder costs. There is also a spool of flux core wire included to start right away. But let's turn it on and see how it works. In the front we have the current setting, which is most important. The IGBT drivers seem to support up to 120 amps. And there is this voltage setting that's not reflected on the display. Looking at the specs, the voltage range is limited anyways, and the instructions says to leave it in the center in the beginning. Further on the top there is a button to switch between the welding modes. It seems there is even a TIG welding mode. Then we have the MIG setting with two different wire diameters, 0.8 and 1 mm, and there is MMA, which is stick welding. Those cables are included. The manual actually is quite useful, so no complaints there. But let's put in the wire and do some test welds. Opening it, there are the instructions how to put in the wire. I'm doing it for the first time here. So there is this spring to tension the wire. We just need to fiddle that in. And then there is the feeder wheel with a 1 mm and 0.8 mm side. You just need to flip it. That actually reminds me of 3D printers. So we just fiddle that in and then just tension it. Alright, that wasn't that difficult. I turn it on and now let's feed the wire. Increasing the current also increases the feed rate, which makes sense here. And here it comes. Nice.
Cool.
Alright, let's try it. I bought this stock metal a long time ago, so it's already a little bit rusty from the moisture. A lesson I learned doing TIG welding is to cover all your skin, otherwise you will get severe sunburns. I got this welding apron which doesn't catch fire, my 25 years old military socks, and the welding gloves, which are most important to have. Those I-beams will be our welding table for now. Probably the most important accessory for welding is the angle grinder with some flipper wheels. Preparing the pieces before welding is really necessary to get a clean weld and a good bond. Alright, this is the 10 amps setting. Yeah, it barely does anything. This is probably more suitable for 1 mm steel. 30 amps are already able to create a puddle and actually penetrates the steel. Yeah, that's what we want. Maybe a little bit cleaner though. 100 amps is a little bit more violent.
Oh yeah.
And here I'm trying to use 120 amps to weld on a steel bar. That's a little bit violent and a lot of splattering. Yeah, this is not a good bond. This is probably my worst weld ever. Yeah, you can see it melted the corner of the bar, but it didn't heat up the pipe enough. Let's try again. Now I will try this butt joint with the magnet here. I'm trying to control the puddle and move it around, so it heats up both parts equally. At the end it was way too hot. So for the other side I turned down the current to around 80 amps. This was a little bit more controllable. One disadvantage of MIG welding seems to be the bad visibility because the flux creates some smoke. But on the other hand, I really don't want to deal with the gas bottles anymore. Oh well, that doesn't look much better. Angle grinder time.
This isn't going anywhere. Oh.
This is the second weld and it really holds up. Let's not waste any more time and proceed with our project.
I need a proper welding table that I can use outside. That might not be the best place to weld.
Here is the plan. First of all, I will weld a sturdy frame which is open to one side. Then on the top I will weld on some square pipes as the welding table top. And then last but not least, I will use hinges on the backside of the table to mount a nice wooden plate that can be flipped open. And of course I will use some casters to move the table around. Last time when I built a table it was way too big to be moved around. So I will pick the measurements of the frame such that the table will fit through any door if the wooden plate is upright. Okay, let's start with the frame with some miter joints. That should be doable with this bandsaw. I got the pieces to the right length first and then tried to add the 45 degrees angle there. Yo, right, it's not perfect, I know. Here's one trick. Instead of measuring the opposing sides of the frame individually, just match the second one to the first one, so they are the same length for sure. Next I got all the edges that will be welded clean. And then I put them in this right angle vise. Don't ask me where, but I got this huge vise for 20 bucks off eBay. And it was new. That was a good find. Okay, moment of truth. I mean, it's not the best, but I was able to already bridge some gaps here. The next corner has a serious gap. But actually it turned out okay. It seemed that every weld I improved a little bit. But at the end the angle grinder fixes everything. Next part were the legs. I tried to set them up right angled, but with welding it's really hard to keep it straight. I will show you a good solution how to straighten the legs later. That's some cool looking footage. The splattering should be a warning to you to wear some protective clothing. Now that I was sure that the welding works out, I cut all the remaining parts that were missing. These bars will keep the legs in the back parallel. And we need those flat endings at the legs for the casters later. That weld isn't that bad. Okay, here is a parade. Well, sometimes you do a step back, but we have a new coarse flipper wheel here to smoothen that. Feels like I could park my car on top of that already. Next I added the square pipes to the top. I used other pipes and beams to keep the tabletop in plane. Yeah, that pipe is smoking. Okay, I need to add the casters next. When drilling the holes, unlike me, consider catching the metal shavings. I have still some of those embedded in my feet after walking around flip-flops and bare feet there. The casters are cool. You can add some washers if it's rocking. Let's continue with the tabletop next. I still have this plate from my old lab. It's really huge and doesn't fit through any door. But it will be perfect for this project. As you can see, it has some bend. And from my experience, I can tell you that happens if you put the coat of the table only on the top side. The bottom side reacts to moisture more quickly, and this is terrible. I will also add those metal bars to keep it straight in future. I don't like the width of the plate, so I take off a bit from the front and the back. As a next step, I have to take off this old, terrible coat. Look at the natural wood. That looks way more awesome. I left it for the day to dry a little bit, and it actually got a little bit more straight. I didn't want to wait any longer, so I sanded it with a finer grit. Also on the bottom, which wasn't painted before, to give it the same texture. I pre-drilled some holes and added the first coat of some wax oil that I have left from my renovations. And you can already see the color pops even more. Okay, that was the bottom side. Now I can place it like that, put on the first coat on the top side and let it dry overnight. Oh, that looks so amazing. I will never put paint on wood again. The day after it was already dry to the touch, so it was ready for the second coat. But first of all I wanted to take care of this crooked legs here. Look at that. Yeah. The best way of making it square is to calculate the diagonal length with Pythagoras from the inner width and height, and then bend it in place to match the length. Yeah, that wouldn't work. I used the tension belt and this wooden slat basically to bend the leg in the right direction, and to keep it there I added the diagonal bar. Okay, that was an easy fix, and I also figured out that those steel brush drill thingies are really cool to remove the flux residue and clean up some rust. I gave the tabletop a light sanding and put on the second coat of the wax. While this was drying, I wanted to give the welding table a shiny top. This has the benefit that it's conductive and you can leave the clamp at the welding table and weld all the parts more easily if they have contact to the table. As a finishing touch, I decided to give the lower part of the table a coat of paint to protect it from rusting again. I'm using this paint that I got from the hardware store. I'm not affiliated or anything. But I found it interesting. It says you can just put it on the rust, it will protect it from corrosion and convert the rust probably as well. So there is not much preparation that I have to do and don't even need a base coat. Perfect for lazy people like me. And I must admit it was really easy to put on. Next part were the hinges. The included Phillips screws were really cheap and terrible. So I replaced them with some Torx. One option to fix them in place would be with rivets, but this is 3mm steel, so it's good enough to hold a tab. Unbelievable, it just works. It's looking really cool, and it's perfect for my lab. To protect it from splattering and not cause burn holes like these here, I might want to put a protective steel plate on the bottom side of the tabletop. But this way it's already perfect. I really love it. And I was totally capable of welding this with this entry-level MIG welder here. So what's my conclusion on that? For around $100, this little thing is really cool. I love that I don't have to handle gas anymore. That was always expensive and leaking, so not really suitable for me since I'm not welding like every day. This welder is really light and small. You can use it for your occasional welds and it will be perfectly sufficient. Except maybe for welding gloves, all accessories are included to start welding. Even though I would recommend to get an automatic welding mask if you want to start as well. Compared to TIG welding, this flux core MIG welding creates some off-gassing, so you really want to use it outside and wear some breathing protection. I hope you liked this little project. Check out the links for this welder in the description. Subscribe for more maker projects. And big thanks to all my supporters. You are awesome. I see you next time. Bye.